Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It was called A Space Adventure Hour. And as the episode starts, a man resembling Lieutenant Kirk and behaving very much like William Shatner's Captain Kirk commands a ship called the Adventure in a space fleet thing that's kind of like Starfleet, on which he serves with people resembling both Nurse Chapel and Lieutenant Ortegas when they run afoul of the wishes of a race called the Aganians, who steal their brain cells. And it turns out that what we're watching is a 60s science fiction show called The Last Frontier, which exists as a sort of play within a play within a play, but we'll get to that. Meanwhile, the Enterprise is studying a neutron star, and La'an has been assigned to test a new recreation room called the Holodeck, which she sets out to do after visiting a dance-practicing Spock for a tech update on the Holodeck, and an impromptu and quite romantically stirring tango by programming a simulation based on a murder mystery novel series of which she is a fan, with the stored transporter patterns of the crew plus Lieutenant Kirk being used to create the holograms of the other characters, who happen to be the cast and creatives behind The Last Frontier, which was apparently up for cancellation and which the writer of was murdered. She ends up bringing in Spock when the programmed mystery starts to challenge her more than she had anticipated. While that's happening, the Enterprise is experiencing power fluctuations as a result of the holodeck, which needs a great amount of processing power, and Scotty scrambles to keep up. As the mystery continues to play out, La'an and Spock discover that the safety protocols are off and they can't exit the program. Fortunately, Scotty is aware of the problem and has enlisted the help of Lieutenant Uhura, who, for some reason, knows about the holodeck test, to try to fix it, and both he and La'an independently realize that La'an has to solve the murder without being murdered to get the program to end. Meanwhile, the Enterprise is almost destroyed by an energy surge from the star that the crew is studying, but Scotty, who has all but become the chief engineer at this point since we never see Pelia anymore, really, reroutes enough power for Ortegas, who is apparently back on the regular duty roster, to fly them away from danger. On the holodeck, Spock is winged by a bullet, and La'an hugs him very enthusiastically, before discovering that he is a hologram, not the real Spock, and the killer, enabling her to end the program. Afterwards, La'an tells Pike and Una that she can't recommend that the holodeck be installed on starships just yet, and then goes to dance train some more with Spock, to whom she explains that she realized the hologram of him was indeed a hologram because it didn't look into her eyes the way he does when they dance, and for whom she apparently has developed feelings, which are mutual, and they smooch. And that's where the episode ended. So I did like this episode. I thought it was a lot of fun, especially the spoof part, the part that spoofed Star Trek, the Last Frontier show that exists within the holodeck program. I thought it was really cool. They even threw in some bloopers at the end of what it would be like if that was a real show and there were bloopers. They threw those in at the end. That was cool, and that included a failed attempt at a Riker maneuver on behalf of the captain character. Paul Wesley was really great in this episode, playing the captain of that spaceship, because he basically was playing William Shatner's Kirk, but as a different character, and it was really funny because, of course, he's also supposed to be Kirk on the show, and it's very funny. I am glad, however, that wasn't the whole episode. When I saw, clips of this spoof that they did within this episode, I thought it was going to be the whole episode, that they were going to do a whole episode where the crew was trapped on some kind of, holodeck, stuck playing that. And I'm glad that it wasn't that was just like a small part of it. I think it worked best that way, so I'm glad for that. I like the fact that Una's hair was back to normal. That was excellent. I like the fact that there's a part where Ortegas is sort of asked about someone's medical condition, and she says, because she's playing an actor as well in this, she says, "I'm an actor, not a doctor." I thought that was very funny. There was one part of the episode where the Uhura character, the actress who plays Uhura, who in this episode is another actress in the holodeck story, gives an impassioned speech about what the show Last Frontier was about. And of course, it's exactly what Star Trek was about, allegories and morality plays to sort of talk about the current world under the guise of talking about aliens in the future and how that was such a great thing. So I thought that was cool because it basically was talking about how Star Trek was a great thing. And though I'm surprised that I'm admitting this, I really liked the relationship developing between Spock and La'an, which apparently is called La'ak, though I prefer to think of it as Spa'an. But anyway, I really like it because I think that Christina Chong's La'an character is sexy as hell. And the chemistry between them was undeniable in episode two. And so, for them to bring that around full circle and have them seem to begin a romantic relationship, I thought was really awesome. I think it's quite good. They work well together. Interestingly, she's a singer in real life, and she did a song with Ethan Peck, so you can check that out. It's on Amazon Music. But yeah, so I really like that. I think they're a hot couple. I thought that was cool. Before I get into the things that I didn't like, I want to note some things. I thought it was cool how this was a play within a play within a play episode, because that's, kind of a thing in literature where you have a play within a play, or really a play within a play. But in this case, it was a play within a play within a play. So I thought that was pretty cool, where, they had the fake TV show inside the holographic mystery inside, Star Trek. It was a play within a play within a play. Anyway, so that was cool. There's a moment where hologram Spock straight up states that Arthur Conan Doyle is an ancestor of his. Now, can we take that to mean that real Spock's real ancestor is Arthur Conan Doyle, or is that just something that Hollow Spock said? We don't know, but it's a reference either way to something that happened in Star Trek 6, where Spock appears to say that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was an ancestor of his, but doesn't come right out and say it. I thought it was interesting that La'an is apparently over Lieutenant Kirk at this point, and apparently Spock is a bit of a Lothario, which, of course, I don't love, while at the same time I'm liking what they're doing with the relationship. I don't love it because it's out of character for him, and that's fine as long as they fix it. But as I've said before, they're running short on time on doing that. But anyway, in the interim, self-contained within this show, I like it. I think it works, and it's good. Now, what were the issues I had? Well, they did the computer is on the glitch, and in order to get out alive, we have to finish the mission or solve the puzzle or solve the mystery or, win the game, and then the computer will let us out because it's broken. And in order to get out of this alive, we have to get to the end of the story or the mission or the game or the puzzle. We've seen that a million times, and so I thought it was kind of lazy. And Scotty realizes that that's what has to happen. La'an realizes that that's what has to happen. And then Scotty breaks into the program by becoming part of the program itself because he can't get communications through any other way, just to tell her what she already knows. And I thought that was useless. Like, why did they bother doing that? The other thing about Scotty that doesn't make sense, of course, is that in the TNG episode Relics, he seems not to realize that holodecks are a thing. He goes up to the holodeck and he says, "Computer, the android in the bar told me that you could show me my ship. I want to see my ship." And he wouldn't approach it that way, I think, even drunk as he was, if he knew what a holodeck was. And so he clearly doesn't. Yet in this episode, he's working on the thing. Like, how can he not know about it? And, of course, it complicates the whole thing of in the future, it never comes up that Spock had a relationship with La'an, who is Khan's descendant. And, of course, Khan never mentions seeing in the database on the Enterprise that his ancestor once served on the ship. He doesn't ask if she's still serving on the ship. It never comes up. He never says anything to Spock about, "Oh, you dated my," why would that be if they had a relationship? I don't know. Anyway, they end up saying at the end of this episode, well, I can't recommend putting the holodeck in live service on ships because it's dangerous. It uses a lot of power, and I got trapped in there and I almost died. And so I can't recommend it. Okay. And so it took them 80 plus years to refine it because that's when it debuts for the first time in an encounter at Farpoint. And it's pretty clear from the dialogue on Riker's part in that episode that it's pretty new technology that he hasn't seen before. So it took them 80 years, or whatever, to get from it almost working correctly to working correctly enough to install it on a ship. And even then, it's still screwed up, right? We saw it screw up how many times over the years. So I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. I think that they just wanted to do a holodeck episode and they knew they couldn't do it without addressing the whole issue of, well, there were no holodecks at the time. And so they tried to make it seem like, oh, we tested it, and then, oh, okay, you tested it, and then it wasn't viable again for another 100 years. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. And of course, then there's the whole question of the rec room that existed in the animated series, which, that would make it seem like it was only a handful of years before they installed it. But yet it was still new on next gen, and Scotty didn't know about it. So it's a whole jumble. And I don't think they had to bring it up again and confuse everything. So I don't know why they did. And, that would almost all be fine if at the end of the episode you could say, well, the point was to tell this meaningful story. But there was no meaningful story. It was fun. It was great to see the actors playing different characters on the same show. And that was interesting. Some of them twice. But there was no point. There was no morality tale. There was no allegory. There was no using this science fiction to tell a story about the modern world that's disguised as the future world. There was none of that. And to compound that, they talked about how great Star Trek was for the fact that it did that. In this case, it was The Last Frontier show. But they spent a couple of minutes talking about how great it was that the show did that. And then this particular episode doesn't do that. It's just there for entertainment purposes, which, I guess is fine, but like, why wasn't there something more important in this episode? And that's been a problem that this show has had from the beginning for a lot of its episodes. There's no point. I raved about the season opener because I thought it did some great stuff, but even there wasn't much of a point to it. I mean, it showcased the human condition to a certain extent, so that's fine. And so did the second episode, as did to a lesser extent the third episode. But this episode really didn't, and it's supposed to at least do that, and it hasn't been doing that. So is it okay television? Yeah. Is it great? Not really, for the most part. This episode certainly wasn't. I mean, again, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't great Star Trek because, like I said, what was the point? There was no point. It was just an hour of entertainment. And Star Trek was always more than that. So I don't know. I liked it, but at the same time, I was disappointed. So there you go. But that's really it. So I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.